What do the good families do well?
Oh my goodness. Well, the first thing that they do well is they typically will have they will be well led.
Okay.
Okay, that's the first thing, which comes from a certain generation. That's critical. Uh, the other thing that they do well is handing off the leadership to a well prepared next generation, which doesn't mean that they grow up in the business alone, but it does mean that there's a planned process for them to
Mm.
gain business experience both inside and outside of the organization prior to them getting tested with leadership as they go along.
Yeah, my
Uh,
father did push for us to get at least 2 years outside our company before we
yeah,
would have the ability to join.
yeah,
And the other rule he had is you cannot own shares in the company unless you work within the company. And we're a general contracting, so high risk, high reward, and fully understood the general contracting side. Property
yeah.
side, very different. We're equal ownership there as well. But we did have a few of those nuggets that he's learned somewhere over the years that made sure that we were aligned. And of course,
Mhm.
education and experience was
Yeah.
definitely important.
Bravo. That's really important. And it's really important if you get back to the sibling issue too. It's really important if you have different ages of the siblings and then the
Mm,
offspring are different ages again. It's just not self-evident that A, they will all fit, that, or B, that they should all be forced.
mm.
Okay, and then ultimately see how can you develop them and give them an appropriate opportunity or window to join the business or not, and then how do you assure that the business itself will benefit from them joining, and that's the other big part.
What my journey along family business is smaller and still experiencing and developing. And from my discussions with people that are not in family business, they typically believe that families fall apart around money or not enough money. And what I've noticed, it's really on emotions and feeling appreciated and
Mhm.
valued and being part in something bigger. Have you noticed the same, or is it really about money, role, title, or is it much more the emotional side of things?
The emotional side will wear you down and will tear you apart. If it was so easy, like in a corporate setting, to say, "Well, then to heck with you, I'll go get another job,"
Mm,
that would happen very easily for family business. But it's the emotional attachment, it's the enmeshment emotionally and the entanglement. And you talked about triangulations and whatnot that come through in relationships that play with the emotions as well. Yeah, it's generally not about the money. Most family businesses that I've been involved with underpay their family participants, okay, in terms of the market value. Okay, now on the one side of it, and you'll say, well, I know what the market value is with a comparable job, but I'm not sure if I measure up to that because I've only worked in the family business.
mm.
Interesting, huh?
Yeah, very
Okay,
interesting.
yeah, yeah. So and on the other hand, the remuneration. I mean, what's interesting is say, well, I'm underpaid according to the market, and I've always hesitated to say, well, what other perks do you get from the family, by the way? Because they'll get other perks which are not being included in the package for themselves, which they sort of take for granted because that's family. You know, we've always had this estate. I've always
Mm.
lived over here, and I know I'll get that when I get older. That's
Yeah.
family, right? And that's sort of all part and parcel of being family business. So there's that. So, but they will get. It's interesting enough. They will get underpaid. They will feel undervalued. That will not make them want to leave. If they leave, it's because of a cutoff.
Mm.
Okay, an emotional, relational cutoff done by one person to another, one family member to another family member. That will cause that to happen. Or it will be an insult or show of such disrespect in their opinion that they cannot tolerate anymore, and they will also then leave. I've witnessed that as well, quite honestly, sadly.
So
Um,
let's say somebody's listening to this and they're just about to make that decision. Any recommendations on them to resolve that prior to pulling the pin and throwing the grenade on the quote unquote family business?
Uh, there's a lot of legacy in family business. Okay. And that legacy, once broken, it definitely splinters. Definitely splinters, may never come back. That also is a part of it. We do need to recognize that any system, and it's a family system, it's a family business system, every system is finite. Okay, so you may need to look, and so you talked earlier about, from shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves, typically in 3 generations. Well, maybe that's the finiteness of that particular system because of the way it was created with respect to the inputs and the throughputs and the influences and the feedback loops and so on and so forth. So there weren't enough to sustain it, to allow it to permutate, okay, or mutate, as you might say, not permutate, mutate into a business that is survivable and can continue on a system because it's growing and bringing in other inputs, right? So so maybe by calling a spade, at least the person feels they're also saying, look, this is it. This business is not working anymore, and I'm out. I think that would be worthwhile to take a look at whether or not that's truly the case, or whether or not it's a consequence of some emotional tensions that have been happening within the family, and ultimately comes to an emotional outbreak that forces the person, not forces, that makes the person feel like that's it, I have to leave here and I'm out. Okay, there's the cutoff. Okay, there's the alienation, and there's the empty place that person leaves in the family, which will always be there whether they're there or not, and it'll always be referred to whether they're there or not until it gets resolved. So whatever they do, if you do leave the business, if somebody's looking at leaving the business and it's emotional, be aware of it and question yourself, is this really it? Is this the end of a system? Should this business come to an end? Is that why I'm leaving? Or is this because of emotional tensions and I'm cutting off my relationships because I just don't feel good anymore being there, and it's dragging me down and not allowing me to be who I want to be? Okay. And recognize what is going to be left behind and what baggage you will be taking with you. And that's the next piece, which is interesting. And I'm probably rambling here, but recall or recognize that when you leave and when you start up your own business or get into your own business in a position, you are bringing that baggage with you. And the more that you have gone against something, the more likely in 10 years you will look at what you're doing. And if you have a good eye, you'll recognize that it's much of the same.